Let's quickly review where we are because we're in the process of developing the criteria for evaluating arguments. That is, figuring out what the standards are for determining the rational strength of an argument. We were looking at this argument that drugs only hurt those who use themselves, therefore drugs should be legal. And he said there were a lot of responses. There were a lot of criticisms that people could wage against this argument. And it's kind of a charged issue, the legalization of drugs. And my goal is not to resolve that problem, but to develop criteria for evaluating arguments. And we said I wanted you to look at two different kind of criticisms that are made of an argument like that. The first one says that, look, I agree with you, drugs don't hurt themselves, but there are reasons. That is not a good reason for jumping to the conclusion that it should be legalized. And our second critic was saying, now wait a second, why do I disagree with you. I think you're wrong that people who use drugs only hurt themselves. So I think, whether you think these guys are right or wrong, whether you thought those two critics are right or wrong in their criticism, that is, they have good criticisms, or whether you didn't think so, what it suggests is they're making two rather different kinds of objections to the argument. The first objection is saying that the inference or the reasoning is bad, or the way I like to put it is that the logic of the argument is defective. That is, you're saying the conclusion that you're claiming doesn't follow from the premise or from the premises. So there's a defect in what we call logic, that there's bad logic. And that's the problem in this case, a bad inference. And the other criticism is that you've cited bad evidence. And I like to say that there's defective factual content. That is, that the premise is false. And it suggests that here there are two criteria for evaluating arguments, or the acceptability of arguments. One is the logic, the inference. Does the premise or do the premises actually lead you to that conclusion? And that's what logic proper itself calls. That is, we're doing a course in logic, and we're really extending the meaning of logic to all kinds of argument analysis and how you criticize arguments. But the logic proper itself has to do with the connection between the premises and the conclusion. And the other criteria that we apply in evaluating the acceptability argument is the factual basis of the argument. The reasons that are cited are supposed to be, or are intended to be, the facts on which the argument is based. So if you start from lousy facts, you may have the right conclusion, you may have the wrong conclusion, but it's an accident. That is, if you're trying to prove a point, you want to cite facts that are really correct. Okay, so it looks like there are two criteria. We're going to apply a criteria, logic itself, the connection between the premises and the conclusion, and we're going to be evaluating whether the factual basis, the premises, the reasons are really correct. So those are the two criteria. And think about it. Spend a minute. What could be the third criteria, or an additional criteria for deciding on the rational value of an argument, or the rational strength of an argument?